Today's video is sponsored by Figure Markets, the largest non-bank mortgage lender in the US with over $15 billion unlocked on their lending platform. They've just lowered rates on their Bitcoin and ETH-backed loans even more to 8.91%, which is 9.999% APR, improving their already industry-low fixed-rate 50% LTV loans. They keep building as well, having also just launched decentralized MPC custody, the only place to get that amongst the major loan providers, and removed interest deferral fees entirely. What is MPC decentralized custody, you might ask? Well, it's a Bitcoin or ETH on-chain wallet with multiple key shards to protect you from a single entity custody failure. You can always see your crypto ownership in a segregated wallet and verify your collateral hasn't moved. Whether you're funding a major purchase, like a down payment on a home, investing in new opportunities, or even buying more Bitcoin, Figure makes it straightforward and transparent. Visit their app or click my link below to take out a Bitcoin-backed loan with Figure today. More people are paying attention to crypto right now than ever before, so it's important to get your information from the sources you trust. That's why I want to give a big thanks to Bitwise for sponsoring today's episode. Bitwise manages over $10 billion across more than 30 crypto strategies, and they've been doing this since 2017. But here's what really sets them apart. They give back too. Bitwise actually donates part of the profits from its Bitcoin and Ethereum investments to open source developers, the people building and maintaining the networks that we rely on. So when you work with Bitwise, you're not just getting professional crypto exposure, you're helping fund the future of crypto itself. Check them out at bitwiseinvestments.com or email james@bitwiseinvestments.com and tell them Raoul sent you. Thanks. Hi, I'm Raoul Pal, and welcome to my show, The Journeyman. The Journeyman, as you well know, is my journey to that nexus of understanding between macro, crypto, and the exponential age of technology. Today I've got a special treat. I can't think of anybody better in the world to speak to on this whole nexus than a good friend of mine, Micky Malka. Micky is well known for being probably the greatest FinTech investor of all time. You know, he was very early stage investors in Coinbase, Robinhood, Revolut, you name it. He was Bitcoin 2010, all of the things. Micky has been at the forefront of everything that's been happening. He's also thinking deeply about where AI is going and how it all fits together. The brilliant Ribbit Capital essay about the tokenization of everything and what tokenization means, not just in the crypto sense, but the broader packets of information that render all of this information for the new digital age, is powerful. And Micky also is a great collector of digital art. So I've got an incredible amount to talk to him about. And I think you're going to you'll really enjoy this, because there'll be lots of new perspectives from you, from somebody who really is at the nexus of the exponential age. Enjoy. Join me, Raoul Pal, as I go on a journey of discovery through the macro, crypto, and exponential age landscapes. In The Journeyman, I talk to the smartest people in the world so we can all become smarter together. Micky Malka, welcome to Real Vision finally.
Oh, it's good to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this, because A, you've got an amazing story, and B, you're doing amazing things. And our paths intersect on all of this stuff. So we have a lot of common interest in this stuff. But I'd love to start by telling your story, because you've got one of the great stories of finance. And I think it's a nice story how the boy from Venezuela ended up doing what you're doing. I mean, it's just a great story. So if you can take us back in time a bit and tell us about how you got here.
Sure. It's a long story. I'm going to make it short. But I grew up in Venezuela. And in the 1980s and 90s, it was an amazing place. The beautiful thing about it was that I was exposed to every single macro event that you can imagine before the time I was 15. If you ask me about hyperinflation, devaluation, capital controls, banking system collapsing. I had checked the box in so many of them since I was very young, and I got to learn. That was my master's in life was exactly that. So I did go to college there because my parents were expecting a degree in economics, but I started my first company when I was 17,
Wow.
and I started a broker dealer. And
Why? How?
I understood flow of funds. I understood that my dad had a private medical practice, and when oil was up, patients came in and spent money in their exams. When they didn't, they didn't. So I don't know. You just grew up seeing all of these things. So to me, understanding markets was very natural, very simple. When I was 17, it was a couple of years after the Brady bonds were all restructured and Venezuela had restructured. There was a whole fixed income world out there that I started to learn about. So I grew up in the environment of bonds and issuing and privatization of companies in Venezuela in the 90s. So the broker-dealer was a great place to be.
Amazing at 17. And then what prompted you to leave Venezuela? What was that story?
So I started to grow that business in the mid 90s, and I started to do more with New York and bringing Americans to do business in Venezuela and all of that. And in one of my trips, I saw an ad for a billboard in New York for E-Trade, where you can trade online for 29.99 or 19.99. And I'm like, what is this? So I got on a plane, I went to the E-Trade office, pretending I was looking for a job, got interviewed, and learned as much as I could of what they were doing with online trading on the internet. And came back and decided to completely at 23 shift everything I was doing to the internet, shut down the offline part, and start building the online broker dealer for what was then the second largest market in South America. The biggest one was Argentina, second one was Venezuela. Everything else was nothing. Um, and in that journey, I met a dear friend who, well, I met an entrepreneur who's become one of my closest friends, Wences Casares, who you know. And we merged because he was doing the same thing out of Argentina, and we started this company called Patagon in 98, 97, 98.
And then so you then became, you and Wences did a few businesses together. Is that right?
We did. This first company, this first broker dealer, there was no VC money in Latin America. There was no venture. We were not the kids of anybody famous, or we were middle class kids. So we had to raise money in the US. And we convinced a bunch of investors in the US to give us money to allow us to grow this. We grew it into Brazil, Mexico, Chile, all over the region. And in 2000, Santander bought the company from us and in the peak of Nasdaq. And once they bought it, they took it over. They merged it into their operations in every country. And when the internet blew, they had zero conviction on the internet after the dot-com crash. So yeah, so we convinced them to allow us to build an online bank in Spain called Open Bank, which still exists. We started it. I lived in Spain, was behind that for a long time. We then left Santander after our contract was due and moved to Brazil. When Lula won, we had met Lula. Lula won, not Lula. The new Lula is very different than the first Lula. And the first Lula was very much into trying to bank the unbanked, give them access to financial services, trying to get them into the ecosystem. Back then, Brazil had 40 million bank people out of 160 back then. And we started a company. We started a technology company to serve the unbanked with financial products. So I lived in Sao Paulo for 3 years, did that, sold it to the largest bank in Brazil, alongside with Wences. And then we moved together to Silicon Valley 18 years ago. And that's been the whole different journey of our lives, our fourth chapter, third and fourth chapter.
So talk me through that chapter. So then did you go straight to start a venture capital business, or?
No, we came here in '07, right before the financial crisis. We moved here in '07. We had this idea that people were going to pay with their phones. And bear in mind, this is before the iPhone. We knew that people were going to pay using their phones. We knew the tapping gesture was the right gesture. So we came here to start literally a payment network running on stickers that had NFC on back of phones that you could tap and pay anywhere on feature phones. Then the iPhone came out when we were here, and it allowed us to go a little bit faster. So we ventured back the company with VCs here in Silicon Valley because we learned that even though we were known and successful entrepreneurs outside, in Silicon Valley was different. You needed the seal of approval. but it had been the most meritocratic place. They didn't care who you were or where you came from. They care more about the ideas that you wanted to build. So we started this. We started this company, and it was scaling. It was going well, but it was too early, which as an entrepreneur is as bad as being too late. You have to know how to manage the timing of the execution. So when we were doing well, but it was not scaling at the pace that we wanted, and then the App Store shows up in 2010. So we pivoted the whole company to build the first wallet inside the App Store as a software company, and that was the beginning of what I call the FinTech revolution. It was probably around 2009, 2011, that era when the App Store showed up, when the mobile browser was really functional, that suddenly, as we were doing this, we started to see many more opportunities and companies and ideas than we had seen in 20 years before. And it's because it was the right time. You had the right time of macro. You had a channel, the mobile phone on the App Store. You had a macro preparedness, which was the brands had suffered, all the incumbent brands had suffered through the financial crisis, so people had no trust in them. And we had unstructured data. So that was the beginning of becoming an investor. I decided that instead of being an entrepreneur of one company, what would it take if I can go help 20 grow worldwide with that thesis?
And I think you saw it early because of what you'd gone through in Venezuela. You could see the issues within the banking system. You could see how you could create access to more people, because you knew the root of the problems.
That's exactly right. Everything I owe to who I became had to do with all that I lived growing up in Venezuela. Because even today, when you hear the headlines about inflation, 3% a year, I'm like, a year? I remember being 10% a day. Like it's just like a different framework that allows you to just look at the world very differently. And it made, I think that I was prepared 20 years as an entrepreneur to be ready to launch Ribbit Capital when we had to launch it in 2012.
And, the story of Ribbit Capital has been an extraordinary story because of getting this thesis so right. You got some of the, really important companies in the space. So, it's been an incredible success story.
There's a long way to go. We're still early.
We are still early. So when does blockchain come into all of this?
It came around 2010 when when we were working on that startup that I was talking to you about. It was called Blink Nation and then Lemon. We had some developers in Argentina, and they were asking us to send some money through Bitcoins. And we're like, what is this? Early 2010. And so we went into this rabbit hole to understand what it was and read as much as we could, that there was not much to read, to be honest, but just spent time understanding it. So when we started Ribbit, we decided that I didn't want to start a venture firm because I don't think great investors need to be labeled. I hate being labeled. You're this or you're that, you're early stage, you're late stage, you do one thing, you do the other. Actually, we just are intellectually curious about the world and find opportunities where they have to be. So we were super early as a fund buying Bitcoins into the fund. And the problem was we didn't know where to store them. We had them on our phone. So we should build a custody business. And that was the beginning of Sapo. And all of these things that started to come were the outputs of what it was hard to buy. You needed bridges into the fiat money. So all of these companies that we backed was a lot of the pain of ourselves at Ribbit trying to buy and hold Bitcoins.
That's a really intelligent way of going about a thesis, is to solve problems that you've got yourself or that you deeply understand, as opposed to, that company looks interesting, it might make money. It's not based around that at all. It's like, how does this specifically evolve and what do we have to do to make it work?
That's been our thesis all along. We sort of don't follow the trends as much as others. We try to spend time understanding a problem. And every company that we backed, I would say not every, but almost everyone has one of those pain points that we suffer ourselves that we were trying to solve for.
And when you saw blockchain, did you just think immediately this fits into the whole FinTech thesis of where this is all going? You saw the whole idea of digital money and smart contracts and all of that as it started developing?
At the beginning, no. Beginning, what I saw was, I remember the only reason why I'm lucky enough to be able to grow out, leave Venezuela and do well is because my parents happened to save a lot of their money in travel checks in the 70s and 80s. And at the beginning, I thought of Bitcoin as travel checks. They had a hash code. They had a serial number. You had them. If you lose them, it was cash, but it was not there. And so it wasn't obvious to me that there was a whole ledger, an open-ended ledger that you could write a lot of more stuff than just the token itself. It took us a few years, I would say, because we were super early investors into Coinbase. They were one of the first ones. The team at Coinbase, the people inside were working. The founder of Litecoin was inside. The team at Coinbase early on. Vitalik had worked on color coins for Bitcoin early on. We've known him from that era. So when he launched Ethereum, it came later as we started to spend time with them. All of these ideas that were just a general ledger system. So I think it was around 2018 or 19 when we actually told our LPs for the first time, we think these worlds are going to converge.
Right.
You're not going to talk about crypto or fintech separately. They're all going to be just infrastructure power in this. And that's when we started to do a lot more in the infrastructure side.
And what did you see in Robinhood in the early days as well? Because you're a famous investor in Robinhood. What was that story? Because that was also very clever to see don't forget, before COVID, the millennial generation hadn't been financialized. They didn't trade stocks. They weren't interested. And suddenly we financialized an entire generation in the period of a year.
It's one of those beautiful stories. At the beginning, when we met Vlad and Beju, they hadn't even launched the app. They were just working, five guys in a small office in Redwood City in Silicon Valley. But what we saw in them was three things that we really, really loved. The first one was they were the customer. It was their age. They were 26, 27. They were 2, 3 years out of college. They had seen Occupy Wall Street movement. They saw their generation feeling that, and they wanted to do something about it. Because they had worked in high frequency trading software, because they were both mathematicians and physics, they understood how to design and reverse engineer the flow of funds again to reverse the revenue streams the way people were doing it. So they had an understanding of the complexity of the infrastructure. And the third thing, they had taste. They had design, and I know we're going to talk about taste and design and the beauty of how difficult it is to design later, but they had it. They really care about every magic moment, and finding that at that age is very rare. So those were the three things that we saw. We had a bet when we looked at it, and they had a waiting list of 100,000 people, even before they launched the app, 6, 7 months before. And I remember saying to them, "You're not going to convert more than 2%." And they said, "We're going to convert 60%." I'm like, "I've never seen it." They were right. They converted 70% of their waiting list into customers when they released the app.
And that trend, because I've followed that trend, that Occupy Wall Street then became, over COVID, financializing this new generation, saying you don't need the middlemen involved. That was the rise of crypto in most people's heads as well. But then the whole thing actually flips on its head, where they suddenly became the bad guys at the middle of all of this with the GameStop thing. It's been a fascinating story of where this is going, but that superpower of kind of decentralized ownership over what we do in our financial world is not going away. It's only accelerating.
That's correct. Well, we're seeing it everywhere in the world. It's not just Robinhood or a company here or there. It is definitely, there's a whole generation of people that the way they think about their money, it's not like the generations before. They don't think it's like the banks used to think that it's their money. This generation thinks it's their money, and that statement alone is very different.
So what is left to come out of fintech? Because we're still, as you said, early in that journey. We're starting to revolutionize money savings, but I just feel like it's going to go a lot further. And that's before we'll come into AI and stuff in a minute, but I just want to see where your vision is for where this is going now.
So because of all these investments and bets that we did over the last 12 years, we were known as the FinTech guy or the crypto FinTech guy, investors at Ribbit. 3 years ago, next month, we went to our investors and we on our investor day every year, 2022, and our first slide was our 10-year anniversary, and the second slide was a tombstone that said "FinTech is dead, 2011, 2022." And what we were trying to say is that all the things that were started in the last decade, the ones that are going to win are already out there. And it's going to be really hard to win because the opportunity sets, the macro opportunity sets that were open with the App Store, with the financial crisis, and with unstructured data had been completely normalized. Those windows had been shut down. So what we think is going to happen, our thesis was 3 years ago, was there'll be a handful of companies, 20, 15, 25, 30, that are going to compound. And now that they have a life of their own, they're going to become the biggest companies in the world in financial services. It will be another decade for that to happen. And this is 3 years back. I mean, Coinbase, Robinhood, North Square were part of the S&P 500 back then. And now three of them are. And I know there will be a few more. So they are what's gonna happen with them is that the ones that are founder-led still and building tech, they're gonna go now and take market share from the incumbents. So far, they haven't taken market share. They've taken a little bit here or there, but now they're seriously gonna go and threaten the ecosystem of incumbents. And the regulation is in their favor now. So that's what's gonna happen with them. And trying to repeat that window with mobile apps or trying to repeat that window with a crypto wallet from scratch ain't going to work anymore.
So, I mean, it's a genius idea to say, okay, we used our platform at first to use the power law to find the investments that are going to work, these big companies,
Yes.
and just say, regardless of whether they're public or private, we're just going to just concentrate into these names.
That's correct.
And let that thesis play out.
And let it play out. And it will take a decade to play out. And it doesn't matter if they're public or private, if they're late stage or early, or they have a mode. But we know if they have control of their time, their brand, their people, and their money, we were backing them. And we have been backing them in those cycles.
And as part of Ribbit, you also have a crypto group as well that does straightforward crypto investing, both in VC and liquid markets. Why did you have those two things running alongside each other? Or is it just the thesis that they're merging into the same thing anyway?
I think they're merging. So I was, what I'm about to say is brand new way of explaining it, and we are thinking about it right now. But I will say the crypto economy, I think it's a mistake to talk about crypto anymore separate from normal assets, because we're going to a world where everything is getting tokenized, so it doesn't really matter. What I think has happened in the last year, since the new administration and the new regulation coming around the world, is that you have given a stamp of approval to the layer ones that are building true infrastructure for the world, like Ethereum or Solana, and you talk about Sui and others. And so now I don't think of them as crypto, actually. They're just networks.
That's right.
And now they happen to be priced through a token that trades 24/7 on chain. But they're just now networks. So now it's much easier to think about them as what's the price of the network? How do you price it? What scale they need? What volume? What revenue streams? What business modes? So I think we're past. I think Bitcoin is depegging from everything else because they're becoming truly two different categories of assets. And you've seen it in the price action of the last 6 months. They have different price actions, more or less. So I believe that is the best example that this is just, there was a time when you had to have a token-only vehicle because of SEC and regulations and how to think about it. But now it's all the same, because in the next few years, as we tokenize every single stock in the world and it trades 24/7, an Ethereum or a Solana token, it will be the same as buying a Robinhood stock token.
So we think the difference between equity and token just collapses over time.
I think it does. I think for the bigger projects and the bigger things, I think it does. And I think we're still in early stage experimenting everything around meme coins and what are they, and AI agentic coins and what are they, and that's the whole new thing. But everything on top of that is just they're just tokens,
And what is,
equity.
yeah, one of my thesis has been, and I just wanted to bounce this off you, is that, I think of meme coins as just a speed test, stress test of instant capital formation. And you can, before you'd have to build a business, go to a bunch of VCs or angel investors, beg them and everything else. And now it's like, if it captures attention, you can coalesce capital in seconds globally through a distributed network. How are you thinking about how disruptive that all is to the VC industry or the investment industry overall?
I think it's super disruptive. I think most VCs don't understand what's coming. Even for us, I'm not 100% clear. We know exactly what it means, but I am shocked on the velocity of capital formation and attention that you can get. It's never been faster. You and I have met people that are doing this full time, and what they're building is insane, and how they get attention. So I will say, we're not there yet because we're not at scale. It's there's not a great the early projects have not been great communicators on what they're doing. They've been a lot more of grabbing attention but not knowing what to do with it. I think we're gonna start to see a generation of founders who are 22, 23 that actually are so crypto native and so AI native that they will take it to a whole new level. So I'm very bullish on what's coming there. Extremely bullish.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting. We could see it again. There was the marker stone of ICOs. We kind of tested it there. It failed a bit, but we got some learnings. Now we're doing it at scale because Solana and stuff is able to, to move at this kind of speed and scale. And out of this, I think will come the final result, whether it's, in 2 years or 3 years, but it's coming. And I think it's incredibly interesting. The other thing about the bet that you have is it's not just about fintech, because the whole smart contract platform is basically the future of the internet itself, whether it's digital ID, all of that. So the bet is kind of twofold. It's the financial system bet, but really there's the whole of Web 2 to Web 3 conversion.
That's correct. And the way we're thinking about it is that if you ask me what's a big one sentence way that we're investing for the next 10 years is money until now was fine with no context, with no knowledge. But for the next decade, money without knowledge is not money. It's not valuable anymore.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that if money has no knowledge of what it's doing, it has no smart contract, it has no rules, it has no decision tree that was made it to move from one place to another, it doesn't hold that information, it's not valuable. It's still money, but it's not as valuable as money that has knowledge. So what I'm saying is that the whole infrastructure grid that powers money, it's not designed to carry information packets with knowledge alongside money. It's been completely separated. And we think that in the next 10 years, as we have more agentic experiences and computers and machines are doing much more of the work and the decision making, the knowledge part with the money part, they need to be combined. So we are spending a bunch of our time figuring out what that looks like. It's going to be invisible for the user. Its infrastructure is not consumer facing yet. But you will see it in ways that it may look to you as personalization. All of our founders for the last 10 years promised personalization of our money. They never deliver. Why? Because we have no way to attach knowledge to money. And in the next 10 years, we will. Like today, if you go to, and a great example is if you go to ChatGPT and you ask them, tell me a restaurant I should eat in Toledo, Ohio, because of everything.
That was a truly terrible experience, but we won't talk about that.
because of everything that I've asked ChatGPT about my past, they have better knowledge of what kind of food I like. So the recommendation will be very different. That is search with knowledge, right? Now let's do the same with money with knowledge. It will behave extremely different. And that's where I think the world is going.
So you recently sent me the thesis that you guys are building at Ribbit about tokenization and how this all fits together, because I see a lot of people talking about AI and crypto and kind of forcing a narrative, but I think your narrative was the largest, most cohesive understanding of what is really happening. So talk a bit about that tokenization context, the idea that I think in the piece it was talking about rendering information for computers was a really big concept. So why did AI start coming into your portfolio? How are you thinking about it in context with all of what we've been talking about?
Yeah, so we tried to write an essay that didn't mention the word AI as much because we think we're all AI has a different definition to all of us. We ask 10 people what's AI and you get 15 answers. So basically, the underlying what pins everything is tokens. And if are listening to your podcast and you are listening to Google's earnings calls, they talk about how many tokens they do a month. And they brag about how they've quintuple the number of tokens per month that they process. If you listen to the earnings call of Visa, and Ryan's the CEO talking about it, he talks about tokens. And yet they're different tokens. And if you talk to energy compute companies, they talk about tokens. And you've talked about energy should be measured by the power of the intelligence, the output of intelligence that it creates, and that's a token in many ways on a measure, on a unit of measure, which is different than just gigawatts. So society is moving to measuring everything in token, but it has a different meaning. So we took that principle and said, okay, what does it mean? It means that we are all companies are token factories. You have a supply of different tokens that you need to do something. You create something new, and you have an output of tokens that are given to somebody else to do something new. And if you think like that, then you can say, okay, if I'm a factory, what tokens do I need to do what exactly? And we basically categorize them in 4 different buckets. We call them the identity tokens, the tokens that talk about you, have information that is only you will know about yourself, your personal name or driver's license or your ID or your bank accounts or your credentials to banks or your healthcare records, anything that is about you. Those are needed in different ways depending on the kind of factory. You have what we call the knowledge or expert tokens. These are tokens that are provided in a service that you don't know yourself, but there's an expert that does it. It could be your wealth advisor, it could be your tax planner, it could be your travel planner, any kind of expert knowledge token that you can use. You have the asset tokens, which are the tokens that are used to actually deliver the goods, the exchange of goods, and it could be stable coins, it could be equities in the future, it could be anything that is tokenized, and they're all machine readable. And the last but not least are the real world tokens, which is, for the first time in history, energy, money, and power are tied together. Knowledge. We have no energy, there's no money. We have no money, there's no energy. We have no money, there's no knowledge. We have no energy, there's no knowledge. This has never happened like this. So those tokens are really important for the future. So that's basically how we've expanded the way we're thinking about our thesis.
And I think it's genius to think of all of these as, you know, tokens of various types of information, that they're all the same thing because they need to be all readable by the machines, whatever we define the machines as, right? This whole internet digital world. And then when you look at it through that lens, you come back to the same lens of crypto is we just have an interoperability problem that needs to be solved.
Correct.
Then there's a distribution problem that needs to be solved. And then there's a transfer and value system that needs to be solved, because everybody's going to be needing to buy and sell tokens and store tokens at scale, whether they're information for the AI or information about ourselves. And that suddenly blows the whole FinTech idea out to, oh my God, it's actually everything.
Exactly.
And yeah.
And you were one of the ones that gave us the best feedback. You made us think with your comments on our letter, because it's exactly what you said. It's like, okay, then what happens? And I think you went forward even further and you said something that everything's a marketplace.
That's what stuck in my head, because I'm very visual. So I just think about all of these tokens and we need to transfer them, whether it's agents doing it or us as people or governments or whatever it is. Somehow we need to organize these things where we can buy and sell them and transfer them. And that to me sounds like, oh my God, the future of the internet is basically a gigantic market.
I think that's where we're heading. And there's people already working on this in different ways. And if you think about it, even OpenAI is a gigantic market of tokens. It just you give them certain tokens and it comes back with other tokens, and you're paying for that as a subscription or as a per API call or whatever. But that's a marketplace of tokens right there. But I think everything's going to move in that direction.
And also, I've talked a long time about the fact that we have a lot of information ourselves that we hold. In a future world where AI becomes more imposing on the workforce and other things, we have plenty of things that we can offer to this token world, like every photograph I've ever taken, or every conversation I've ever had, or my personal information, or my attention. All of that gets tokenized, and it can release capital to people for the quality of the tokens that they hold.
That's exactly right. And I think that's where we're heading. And that's where your data is as valuable as any other data for these token factories. They're going to find a way to incentivize you to share them.
Yeah, because now they've scraped the public web. The way you need to build this is with all of the other data that's available. And they're going to have to pay for it because they're in private hands. So that becomes a very interesting proposition for businesses, people, everything else. Or you can trade it for other things. You trade it for free services. We've seen that in the internet model. I give you attention, you give me free videos, we're all happy. So there's a whole bunch of ways that this is going to play out. But I think it's the most unique understanding of the whole thing that I've seen, the most cohesive vision of how this all comes together.
Thank you. I hope we are right on it. But,
I don't see how not. I honestly don't see how not, because we're seeing marketplaces already for some of this stuff. I know
yes.
We've written about it at Global Macro Investor that this seems to be the way for everything, that everything gets tokenized, both in a monetary token attached to an information packet token, because it's the only way that we can allow agents to operate in an economy and collect the information it needs to do its stuff.
If you want to start a company around it, we're happy to talk to you on it because you're spot on. And I think that's where the agents are going to be amazing, because in Web2, it's still really hard to organize your personal data to know how to get a benefit out of it. But imagine if you had your own agent that can actually do that for you. And it organizes your data to figure out what's the right, how to create the tokens that are needed for somebody else for you to exchange value. And I think that's where it's going to get super interesting.
And how do you think about autonomous agents as investable entities? Are you starting to think, well, there's clearly just going to be a RIA or wealth advisor agent, and these are not necessarily companies per se? How are you thinking about that transition?
I think that I was throwing a controversial statement a couple nights ago, talking about I got 3 kids. One of them is in college, the other 2 are going to be in college in the next few years. How hard is the labor force going to be for them when they graduate? And I had 3 hardcore statements. The first one is, in this era, you only go to college if you either get a scholarship and you can graduate debt free, or you have some trust or family that can afford it, or grandparents that can help you afford it. But you should not go to college if you're gonna finish with debt right now. The second big statement was a bunch of people are gonna have a hard time finding jobs, but I think there'll be the entry workforce may be that we work for agents. An agent will hire young people to do tasks, which is very different than a company hiring them. And I think that's coming sooner than we expect. So I think that's how agents are gonna enter the economy. It will take a while. We're not there. The agents are very buggy. The user interfaces are not great. I don't find the phone is the right element to connect with agents. The phone is quite clumsy to do that right now. I don't know you, but I find myself using more AI on my laptop than I am on my phone.
Yeah.
I can I can put more features, more applications. I can have more access to enhance the experience of my hard drive, my voice, my notes, my video than I can on my phone. So I think we're still missing a new interface. Maybe it's the new glasses. Maybe it's something around the glasses. I don't know yet. But we need all of that to make these agents really take off the way they should.
It was interesting. Fiverr, the platform that, you can hire people to do stuff, made an announcement they're cutting like 30% of their workforce because of AI. I'm like,
Yeah.
why don't they just become an agent platform?
Yeah.
And I think of agents as bundled tokens because they use different tokens for different outputs. And they're just baskets of tokens being used for different applications. Feels like there's a Fiverr or somebody like that could completely take over a marketplace because that's all it does anyway.
100%. I agree with you. It's going to take them a little bit of time. It's always the innovator's dilemma. And what if they don't do it, there'll be a 21, 22-year-old kid who, think about it this way, there's already two full grades of college students, almost three, that since they had to apply for college, ChatGPT was around to help them write the essays. And in a few years, no one's going to know how it was before that. And that generation is going to build applications and agentic experiences because they're building agents at school already for their classes. And it's going to be much more native. So I'm very bullish on that generation coming up.
Yeah, you said this to me the other day when we were together. You said, I'm spending all of my time with 21, 22, 23-year-olds because they're native to this and they're the only people who are going to get it.
Yes. It is like going back to 1996, 95, 97, 98, and trying to talk to somebody about the internet that is not actually playing with it 24/7. What could they tell you? How would they describe a page view or a HTML website or a browser or a SMTP? Like they had no content. We could try it, but it was not the same as the guys that were building it. We were lucky as a generation that we grew up with the infrastructure of the internet getting built. So we understood what was possible. We understood that, hey, the packets on TCP/IP can actually be compressed more and you can send video and you will understand, yeah, I can see that happening. I can see how packet because I understand how TCP/IP works. So you can understand, yeah, voice, video, yes, it's cool, but it's possible. And better and better. These kits are the same for AI. They understand foundational models, they understand the application layer, they don't take notes on anything but on an AI agent. They do the homework there. They're just different. It's the same way as the kids of the 90s were.
It's fascinating. And do you think the businesses they build will start falling in the category of one employee style? You can build $1 billion business with one employee idea. Are we getting there yet?
I think we're on our way faster than we think. I think using historic context, when 100 years ago, 110 years ago, the vanguards of entrepreneurship in America, the barons, when their companies went public or when they got really, really big, they still own 70, 80% of their companies. And their friends own 10% and the merchant banks own 10%. And capitalism and society moved that equation from a founder owning 80 to the founder owning 20 and the financial investors owning 80. I think we're going to start to see the move back where companies have less employees, hence less dilution. They're more capital efficient because of all these agentic experiences, and the founders will probably own more of their companies. So we'll see a proliferation of new companies.
That's fascinating. We've seen crypto go the other way, that they've tried to force as much out of the hands of the original founders, and that it loses alignment of interest.
It does, and it was doing it because it was trying to use money as a battle for attention.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to solve a problem. But here, I think this combination of token factories actually solve attention. And if they solve the attention, the money is not needed. You got the attention. Now it's what do you do with it?
Yeah, and also because of the old system of the rigidity of having to go through a seed raise and friends of family, and then you need to go through a VC and all of this, you are naturally just losing equity of the firm. But if we take forward the conversation we were having before about instant capital formation, you actually don't need to go through that
That's
process
correct.
in the same way.
That's exactly right.
Fascinating. So more importantly, digital art.
Yes.
Where did this journey start with you? And I want to talk about this journey because this is another amazing thing. Both been going through this whole journey at the same time as well and thoroughly loving it. So give me that whole story. Where did it start for you?
So I missed the whole free to claim CryptoPunks 2017. I never bought a CryptoKitty when Ethereum showed up. I saw them. I saw how it collapsed the network. I saw the punks, but I was too busy doing my stuff and missed the whole thing and missed the NFT craziness of 21 or 20, 21, 22. I stumbled into digital art in 2022, just 3 years ago. And it was in the bear market, and I was the markets had calmed down. World was a little bit slower. We were reshaping our thesis and our thinking. And on Twitter, I was scrolling and I saw an art piece posted that looked very similar to an art piece that Becky and I have from a Brazilian artist that was painted in the 80s. And it was very similar. And we were like, whoa, this is beautiful. So ended up going online, buying it. It was from a Mexican artist called Juan Carlos Garcia. And he had done it on a Bright Moments Mexico exhibition. And so we bought our first NFT. And then our journey was more like, let's pair, because we have an art, we've been collecting physical art for a while. Let's pair some of our physical art with our digital art. And we went and saw the autoglyphs, and they matched with something we had from an artist from the 50s. And so our journey was not a crypto first journey. Our journey was not a trading journey or a looking for the hot to find stuff. It was very artistic by nature, just trying to pair. And along that journey, when we bought the autoglyphs, we got a chance to meet John and Matt, the Larva founders. And then we talked about CryptoPunks and about the pixels in the CryptoPunks and where it comes from. And we're the same age and how it was the same games we were playing when we were kids and the psychic and the whole story about and how it was free to claim. And that was the day that the aha moment came. And trying to convince Becky to shift from physical art to digital was a journey of itself. And now we're fully, as you can imagine.
Well, because
But that journey,
I remember following you earlier in the journey, and you were comparing Latin American and South American art that you'd had physically and that art history of that region, and then showing the art history of that region continuing into digital art and how they were referencing each other. So you really came from art itself.
we came from art itself completely. We were just doing the pairings, and our first website was just pairing our stuff and for ourselves and showing our kids how art can talk in different generations to different people, but it still rhymes. And that was our whole thing. I would say we along the way, three things happen. One, you encounter amazing people that are so creative that inspire you. And that is people that, have become our friends, like Eric from Snowfro or Mike People or Sam Spratt and or Michael and Picos. And when you start to meet them and you see the human behind them, you even fall in love more because the inspiration of what they're doing goes beyond just what they're expressing. It's what they feel. So that was really refreshing in a world where art has become extremely stale and politically heated and in many ways boring. I remember we went to the Biennale in Venice in 2023, maybe? When was it? 2024, 23, 24. And we walked the Biennale and it was boring. It was dead. It was no energy. It was just all of this, and it was curated by a Brazilian curator. We thought it was going to be tropical and colorful and beautiful, and it wasn't. And then we walked through Venice, and we went to the Bright Moments finale. the last exhibition, and all of these young artists and energy and creativity and pushing each other and collaborating and clapping for each other's success and the news stories, and it just felt like you were back in Paris 1910s or 1920s when the artists had that kind of energy. So we left that place saying, we got to do something about this. This is bigger than just this, because that curation at the Biennale in Venice or the museums, they feel like, in FinTech analogy, they feel like going to a bank branch.
Yeah.
Why would you go to a bank branch anymore? They don't talk to you. They don't need anything from the bank branch. That's how museums are talking to people and art is talking to people. So we got more excited to spend more time in this side.
And also, I've talked ad nauseam about this. It's a cultural moment. It's like Paris in the 1910s. It's like London or New York in the early 2000s. It's like, or New York and Warhol Factory. There's everything around this, and it's exciting, and it's young and creative and different and unique. And those are magic moments. And we're going, this whole trajectory of the internet, crypto, AI, all of this is about to change everything. And this is that moment. And this moment is going to be relevant to humanity forever. And so artists tell stories. And particularly cultural stories. And it's so attractive. It's just fun.
It is. And you call it artists tell stories. We describe it as artists are here to tell you the future before we get there. And they are. They're doing both. And the best ones are just magical. I mean, can you go to sleep every day without looking at what Beeple does for his every day?
You
I
can't.
can't.
No.
And it's magical. It's a storytelling, and each one has a different way of doing it.
So once you had the aha moment and you got Becky across the line, or how did you get Becky across the line from here's some really kind of interesting contemporary art to listen, there's a pixel image with a hoodie and glasses, and this is a really good idea. Tell me about how you got Becky across the line, and then we'll talk about what you've been building, because it's really important what you're doing.
I wish I could tell you that I take credit for it, but I didn't. It wasn't me that got across the line. After being together for a lifetime, this is what happens. But she joined a call put together by the curated team. We were investors in curated at the beginning, and they had brought Matt and John from Larva to explain CryptoPunks. And they went online and they showed hey, there's 5 types of funks. Here they are: female, male, zombies, apes, and aliens. And here are the rarities. And there's 87 attributes. And here's how we play with them. And here's how we put it together. And here's how we did the collection. She finished a phone call, looks at me and says, I get it. I love it. We should do this. It was like a moment of storytelling when they understood the magic. And it's no surprise that it starts with portraits, because every art movement in history starts with faces. Every single one. So there is some cultural moment, a technological moment, a aha moment with 10,000 portraits. That was the beginning of this cycle. And that was how she saw it, and that's how she said, all right, what do we do now?
So what did you do then? So the canvas, the node, punks. I mean, that story is a really interesting story as well, and I think it needs to be told.
I think as a collector, what we do is we believe in this idea that trying to be the trusted friend to the artist. And in art world, that's called like a patron model. I don't know exactly, but I don't think we don't get the joy of doing this if we don't get to spend time with the artists, meet them, and encourage them to push the limits of their imagination, because that is the best way. That's where art should live. The same way entrepreneurs are the best, when you push them to the limits of their imagination and you just give them the support and the trust and the comfort that you're there for them if shit goes bad, right? So that's how we feel with the artist side. What happened was we started to talk to museums about this. How do we get this art into the museums? And the answers were extremely like talking to banks 10 years ago. Well, you can talk to the committee for 2028, and we can maybe do something and we will need to prepare for 3 years, and we'll have to curate it. Like, it was just a language. It's just a language that doesn't speak to the culture moment that we live right now. How people are connecting to right now in the moment. Like, you're trying to explain an exhibition to 2028 to people doing an art piece every day. Like, they don't connect. By the time you exhibit it, they lost them. They lost the moment. The art needs to be expressed daily and shown and broadcasted and tell the story in a different way. So we looked at each other and said, how do we do this? Let's not work in their system. Let's be the rebels, like in Ribbit, where we consider ourselves to be rebels. How do we do the same in this world? Because it's very similar in so many ways. People don't see it. The older generation are not going to be the people who are actually the collectors. It's going to be the young generations who understand it and they live it and they're okay with digital art and living in pixels or on chain or the world seeing it, but only one person owning it. So we put a challenge of how do we do this? And that's where we came up with Node, a foundation that we spearheaded, that we're backing with three very clear purposes. First, Node is a network. And it starts with a concept of a network. It's not a destination, it's a network. So a node has no value if there's no more nodes. So the more nodes, the better. So we're starting with node one, with the idea that will be more of them. But there's three concepts. One, exhibition. How do you make people feel about this? Museums are not wired to show digital art. This is not supposed to be on screens on the walls. It's supposed to be alive. It's supposed to feel immersive. It's supposed to feel like you're walking through the story of the art. You don't need a small letterhead of 10 lines telling you what the artist meant or a QR code to take a photo. You don't need that. You need something very different. So people want something very different. So we had to design a space from scratch that allowed for that creativity. And what better place than Palo Alto? Why? It's where computers got started. It's where Steve Jobs started the first Apple store a block away from Node. And I remember seeing him going to the store every day for the first year, tweaking how things were shown, how things were presented in the store, because that was the place where they started. They designed the store here. And then they took it, and then it became a node network of itself with the Apple stores. So we're trying to replicate. We're no Steve Jobs, we're not Apple, but we're trying to replicate that sensation, that feeling.
It's also super interesting choice of location because obviously there's Stanford there, there's all of the technologists, and none of them actually own digital art. There's very few of these guys who built this whole digital world own any of this stuff. It's weird.
That's correct. It's very weird. And I think it's going to grow on them. And I think once they see it, they cannot unsee it. They connect with it really fast. We've been at our home, we have been exhibiting digital art and physical art together. You can see how digital art attracts everybody young and they get embedded in it and they get absorbed by it and they ask questions and they want to come back and see it again. So you can see this is going to happen. It's just, it hasn't been in their place. You don't expect a techie guy to go to the museum and walk for 2 hours and find one piece in a LED screen this size on a wall. That's not going to make the connection to them.
It's also interesting to see the collector base change as well. We're starting to see there's very little trading goes on now. It's just a bunch of collectors coming into the space and trying to build serious collections. I think the whole space has changed. A lot of people don't understand this. When I mentioned I was at some family office event in LA and talking about it, NFTs, they're like, oh my God, that was awful. I'm like, you don't understand what's happening is like, there are serious collections being built, serious relationships with artists, and it's less financialization and more the traditional art curation and collection that's happening.
I agree with you. I think we're just starting the storytelling phase. And even the artists are getting more comfortable telling their story because they were the first entrepreneurs. This is like the first entrepreneurs that started the internet. They just saw technology in a way that no one else understood it. They saw the future way, way before. And now you're starting to see how they're getting comfortable telling the stories, sharing how this is happening. And on top of that, there's a whole generation of new artists that you've met and I'm meeting that are just special also, because for them it's like there's no other way. There's no turning back. They didn't even train on the old mediums. They went straight to these new mediums.
And I think it's going to push mediums even further. You and I were talking about, hologram as
Holograms.
yeah, all of this, and the artists are pushing it really because they're pushing technology. I mean, they were using AI. There's so much interesting stuff going on because of the forefront. And how I've split my own collecting is cultural stuff, which is the commenting of what's going on in society,
Yes.
or there's the cutting edge stuff, which is like, here's some incredible things that are happening. I always refer to the Kim Assendorf pixel decks because it's like,
Yes.
it's unbelievable as a concept where every single pixel is a token in its own right. There's something in that, which is something about what you're talking about, that everything is a token, that's really interesting statement.
Team is pushing the boundaries on this. I agree with you. PixelDex is one of the most interesting projects out there, and only a person like him can actually push the boundaries like that. And you gotta understand his background and his love for music and how he thinks about pixels as a unit of a token that talks to also to music in real that are live. It's just a beautiful concept, and we're starting to see more people like that coming and pushing the boundaries. So what happens with them is, where do they go? Where do they exhibit this? Where do they have the pixels talk to the pixels to each other? Where do people can see the difference between an art piece with 1,000,000 pixels and one with 500,000 pixels? And that narrative and that storytelling is what we want to start with, allowing artists like Kim to show through the space at Node. So that's our first goal.
I mean, I saw online, you guys were posting, I think the Node was posting that there's a bunch of screens just arriving. So what is that? When do you think it's going to be up and running? I know it's hard and there's a lot to do and you need to break new ground yourself to get this done.
Well, to answer that question, it all starts with having a great team. And we got a team led by Phil, who was at Sunday early days and Brave Moments and built a lot of their tours all over the world, who loves technology and loves art. And we got a team. The team at Node, it's engineers and AI people. It's not art curators or museum people. So it's a very different way of approaching the exhibition. So to answer your question, we will be soft opening the space sometime in December for us to test and see how it goes. We'll officially open to public in January. I'm not sure yet on the date, but we will definitely start with a collection that is close and dear to many of the art digital holders of the world, with what we think is one of the best brands worldwide.
And that's what, CryptoPunks.
And that is CryptoPunks.
So I know we're gonna run out of time, but I need to hear the story of you ending up buying the IP rights to CryptoPunks and why you did it, because it's also important why you did it.
I think that if we truly are right, and this is a cultural moment in time and a society moment in time, you have to make sure that the best assets have a home that has no other interest but the ability to tell the story forever. And the CryptoPunks IP, for different reasons, ended up in hands of corporate world, and they did as good as a job as they could to steward it, but they could not navigate it because corporations are designed to think short term in some of this stuff, and also have a different kinds of agenda. So thankfully, the Yuga guys did a good job managing the brand for a number of years, and they also agreed that finding a home like this was a better place for it. So we did something that we've never done, which is contribute a lot of money to Node so they can go buy this and find a permanent home for it. And the beauty of this is that now every punk holder and every museum and every node and everybody in the world knows that the brand, the attributes, the marketplace sit in a place that is going to be thinking in decades, not in days. That is going to slowly allow the story to be unlocked, that is going to make owners feel proud of what they have. And I do believe that there is no better object, no better portrait that tells a story of this cultural movement than CryptoPunks as a portrait, period. And as I told people 10 years ago, you should at least buy 1% of your net worth in Bitcoin, or just buy one, put it away, forget about it. I tell people in this day, you should have Bitcoins for sure, put them away. You should have one CryptoPunk, forget about it. It will be one of the most rare collectible objects in the next 20, 30 years. So how we got there, just to finish that, uh, I was not prepared for this. I didn't think about it that long. It wasn't a master plan design. It was an entrepreneurial moment of saying, this is the flag that is going to make the node have a story that can be shared worldwide. And let's take it and let's see how much good we can do with it.
And how I think about it, again, it's something you and I talked about. You know, your mission is complete, or not complete, but you're on the right track, the larger the number of holders of punks there are. Because then you're creating, if you can have 10,000 nodes in that network, it's much more powerful than 5,000 nodes in the network.
100%. I think the true North Star, if I had a KPI, it will be that over the next 10 years, we have 10,000 unique holders of punks. And maybe by then, some people are fractionalizing ownership and there's more. That's a whole different equation that smart contracts will allow to do or not. But I do think that that's a value of this. It's what it means and what it will represent to society.
And a final question on the art side is, how do we bring new people in, or do we just allow it to happen from the younger cohort? Because there was a whole moment in this space where they thought it was important to go to museums, and they thought it was important to go to Art Basel and bring in traditional art investors. I just don't think that's the way. I think it should be crypto native, internet native people who should be involved.
When I started my first fintech company in the 90s, I really, really, really cared that the banks like me, than the incumbents. And I did my best to work around them or with them, or I convinced Morgan Stanley to work with me when I was 22. Like, it was really important in my mind that those things happen. When I started Ribbit, we made sure that none of entrepreneurs spent time talking to the incumbents, because all they can do was bias their way of doing stuff. There's a set of artists that were born in an era where still showing up in museums is important, and I think it's really important. And hopefully, we get to see more of this. Like, I'm not against it, but there's also a new generation of artists who see the museums and they get zero excitement. It's like a bank branch for entrepreneur in fintech, and they're like, I'm gonna do it differently. I'm gonna do it my own way. And that's where I think we're gonna end. We're gonna end up having that transition of periods, and hopefully the museums will adapt and they will embrace it and they will correct. And a few are, as you and I know. The Museum of Toledo, led by Adam, is doing a great job on forcing that function. And there's others that are really trying, and we will be here to help them if they want to. If they want to come and see the space and copy it and replicate it, or take some of the exhibitions and replicate them in their space, we'll be more than happy to, because it's for good of culture and society. But also, you gotta disrupt them. It's not working.
To tie all of this together, all of our conversation, there's something clear to me, is that everything you do is based around really a simple premise, which is that the internet, whatever that is eating everything. Money, art, literally everything we do. And it's creating new creatures in AI, new populations. And all of this is all part of that bigger thesis about everything is tokenized, because this is the way forward to feed the beast of the internet. As David Bowie called it, was like this alien creature. He saw it a long time before everybody else in that snip when he talks about it.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not what you think it is. This is kind of everything. And it feels that whole token factory idea is, if you think of the internet as the beast that we're feeding, that's actually morphing into AI, art plays a part in this. It's all the same thesis. And it's brilliant to see. I love to see somebody like yourself who wraps all of these ideas together, and you come at it from different ways, but they're all the same thing.
You synthesize it better than I could ever, but I see them all as the same thing. And I wake up every day and I feel fortunate that I get to work in figuring out how money, knowledge, and power changes on tokens, and then work every night and every weekend, or spend hours talking to Becky and feeling the team on how we do this for art in the same in our culture. And that is as much as I can ask for.
Yeah, it's a very lucky position to be in, to be at the forefront of all of this, in the biggest change humanity will ever go through. And you're playing a part of that. And it's an honor and a privilege. And, it's a testament to you in seeing all of this as well. So well done. It's going to be an exciting journey. I can't wait to come and see the node once it's up and running.
Me neither. We will have you, we'll have all of you come. And more importantly, there's a design concept that we're doing where we're going to allow artists to curate their own exhibitions. Think about it. You're just disrupting the whole middle layer of organizations. It's going to be fun. It'll be very different, and we're going to learn. We're going to make a bunch of mistakes, I'm sure, and we're going to learn from them. Last week, I was on my first punk brunch ever after the Toledo exhibition, and we were sharing with them that we will make a bunch of mistakes and expect them. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't make them, we're not telling the story, and we're not pushing it. And we got the artists back. John and Matt are back working in CryptoPunks. We have other artists working on exhibitions and ideas on how to showcase and use a studio, and that's what we're super excited about.
And I urge people to follow Canvas, which is your art collection that's being built, because you're documenting history, and it's just a good place for people to start, because you've built one of the most unbelievable collections. So that's an amazing thing. Final question, because I know people are going to say, what is the Ribbitter thing? What is the little autonomous agent that's on X?
I have no idea.
I don't believe you for a second. Listen, my friend, thank you. Great to see you as ever. And I'll see you very soon somewhere.
Take care.
I'll see you at Marfa.
We'll see you, Marfa. Bye.
Okay. Fantastic conversation with Micky. I think we could have spoken for hours. I'll probably have to finish it with a glass of wine with him at some point. But the point being is how all of these things are all part of this much bigger picture. The idea of the tokenization of all information to create, to render our new digital world for us is powerful. How that fits in with blockchain technologies, why it happens, where the FinTech revolution is going, and then why art matters and how that plays a role as well. Incredible conversation. I'll see you next time. So you obviously like this video enough that you've got to the end. That's quite a big task. But listen, do me a favor, hit the like and subscribe button, and also check out what video's next, because I think you'll love it. But if you want even more, and when I'm talking more, I'm talking about member-generated ideas, incredible alpha, research, everything there to help you in your journey, just head to realvision.com/join for the best financial intelligence out there and the pure alpha that's within the platform.